Hello students, today's topic is object-oriented programming concepts in PHP. You can also find this content in your reference book in chapter number 9, and you can also find tutorials point and W3 school for more helpful content. So let's start with today's topic. What is object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming was developed because of the limitations discovered in POP, that stands for procedure oriented programming. In OOP, the fundamental construct is an object which combines both data and functions in a single entity. While in POP, that is procedure oriented programming, data and functions are loosely coupled, whereas in OOP, data and functions are tightly coupled to constitute objects. When any language is considered as an OOP, that is object oriented programming, it must provide basic principles of OOPs, that is inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and data abstraction. Object-oriented programming is a method that involves the use of data structure and organizes classes of an application. The data structure becomes an object, and that includes both functions and data. And a relationship between the object and other object is created by the programmer. Very basic fundamental of object-oriented programming is the class and object. So let's see what is class. Class is the programmer defined data type which include local functions as well as local data. You can think of a class as a template for making many instances of the same kind of object. Next is object. What is object? Object is an individual instance. Instance is another word for object. Object is an individual instance of the data structure defined by a class. You define a class once and then make many objects that belong to it. Objects are also known as instance, or in other words, it is like a container that contains methods and properties which are required to make a certain data types useful. An object's methods are what it can do and its properties are what it knows. Next is modifier, or you can also call it a access specifier that defines the scope of variables and properties. In object-oriented programming, some keywords are private and some are public in class. These keywords are known as modifier. These keywords help you to define how these variables and properties will be accessed by the use of this class. In short, modifier defines how and when to use variables and properties. Private access specifier or private modifier. Properties or methods that are declared as a private are not allowed to be called outside the class. However, any method inside the same class can access them without a problem. When any variable or when any function is defined as a private, only that class that belongs to it can access it. No other class are able to access them. Next modifier is public modifier. Any property or method or variable which is not explicitly declared as private or protected is a public method. You can access a public method from inside or outside the class. Third modifier is protected. This is another modifier which has a special meaning in object-oriented programming. If any property or method is declared as protected, you can only access the method from its subclass. Next topic is constructor and destructor. Constructor means to construct something, to build something, while destructor works the opposite of constructor. It is used to destroy something. In object-oriented programming, to construct an object is the work of constructor, and to destruct that object that are used by using construct functions are destructed by destructor. Constructor is acclimated to initialize the object. Arguments can be taken by constructor. Constructor has the same name as the class name, and memory allocation is done by underscore construct function. Destructor, the object that are created in memory are destroyed by the destructor. In other words, it releases the memories of objects that are created using construct function. Arguments can be taken by the destructor also, and we can also overload the destructor. Next is class constant. Constants are static variables or static properties whose value cannot be changed during the execution. You can make constants in PHP scripts utilizing the predefined keyword to define. At the same time, to make constants in the class, you need to utilize the const keyword. These constants really work like static variables. The main distinction is that they are read-only. Next is inheritance. Inheritance, or to inherit. To inherit is the verb. Inheritance is the noun. To inherit properties and methods of parent class. Inheritance is well-known programming rule, and PHP makes utilization of this standard in its object model. This standard will influence the way numerous objects and classes identify with each other. Or in other words, when a class is defined by inheriting existing functions or a parent class, then it is called inheritance. Your child class will inherit all or few members, functions and variables of a parent class. Magic function. PHP has list of magic functions. Some are used in the predefined way. There are some predefined functions name which you can't use in your program unless you have a magic functionality related with them. These are reserved words, so you cannot use as a variable. These functions are known as magic functions, have special names which begins with 2 underscores. Construct, deconstruct, call static, get, set, is set and unset, all are magic functions. Now let's see one by one. Very first is construct. Construct function is called when object is instantiated. Generally, it is used in PHP 5 for creating constructor. And destruct function, it is the opposite of the construct function. When object of a class is unset, this function is called. Next is call function. When a class is a function is try to call an accessible or inaccessible function, this method is called. Next is call static. It is similar to call static with only one difference, that it triggered when you try to call an accessible or inaccessible function in static context. Next is get and set function. Get function is used to get the value of any property or value, while set function is used to set the value of any property or variable. Polymorphism. This is an object-oriented concept where same function can be used for different purposes. For example, function name will remain same, but it may take different numbers of argument and can do different tasks. The ability of an object, variable or function to appear in many forms is known as polymorphism. Poly stands for many and morphism stands for forms. So together polymorphism is many forms. It allows a developer or programmer in general rather than program in specific. There are two types of polymorphism: compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. Next is interface. There are some specific set of variables and functions which can be called outside a class itself. These are known as interface. Interface are declared using interface keywords. In other words, interface are blank templates which used to override the methods declared in them. Next is abstract class. Abstract means to hide something. Abstract class is used to hide the functionality. A class which is declared using abstract keyword is known as abstract class, and abstract class is not implemented, just declared only. They don't have body actually. They just override the method that is overridden by subclass. Here one example is given, so go through it.